So you're saying it's kind of like an autistic training manual, like it's as if you've just not recognized the structures and codes around you already.
Yes.
We are essentially commodifying sex in the same ways that we've commodified material. And if we look at the way that's turned out, if we just look at the way that's turned out, there are like 3 people in the United States that own the same wealth as the bottom 50%. We will have like 3 guys with 50 million girlfriends. That is the only way this ends. The kind of reactive conservatism in trans philosophy sometimes, where we say, well, a woman wears pink, a woman wears dresses, a woman has long hair, a woman, and looks a woman cleans the house. Maybe why not just why not just go all the like, you be a woman, you've got to be a 50s housewife.
Like suppose I go and approach a woman, right, and I'm obese, right? Like it's gonna be a lot harder to get with a girl than if I'm a Giga Chad, right?
Yeah, usually I would probably say, yeah.
Yeah, so this
unless like our dad was really obese or something,
there's potential with like deep fakes and like hentai that would be more ethical.
Oh no, I think that's actually gonna with. Like that's gonna mess with our heads. Like so, like I wouldn't be surprised if people are only able to have sex when they superimpose each other's faces onto another person's body and have virtual sex with each other by the end that we're done with this. We are met with this existential crisis, and this is I think this is like men in general, like not just men but like people in general in our society. We are being met with this existential crisis where meaning is evaporating before our eyes, and we're like, F it, we're going back to the way my granda lived. I would rather just tell myself the lie. Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of Perspective Philosophy, where we try to better our perceptions of the world through philosophical discussion. So today I'm discussing red pill and gender with a patron. I think this could be a really fun conversation, so let's just jump straight into it. Hello.
Hello.
How you doing, man?
I'm fine, how are you?
I am pretty good. It's almost as if we've had a conversation for 10 minutes before this.
Did we?
Did we? Yes. Okay.
Let's see the suspense.
Okay, so just to clarify, this debate's going to be on red pill and gender, how they interrelate, and you don't want to you don't specifically want to argue for red pill, as in you think there are, and I quote, numerous kinds of pills, all with their own truth.
Somewhat along those lines, yes. Yeah, okay. I would agree to that.
Okay, great. So how would you like to begin? What is your position on gender?
Okay.
And red pill and the various pills?
Sure. So I view gender as one's desired sex, and by that I mean what sex they feel to be right they have, as in their bodily arrangement. And
okay,
if you want me to get into what this whole pill stuff is, I think they're really just trying to describe truths about these gender dynamics that come into play in the development of a relationship. And each one of these quote unquote pills have these universal takes that I think have some truth to them, but are also one-sided.
Right. So they can't be universal if they're one-sided. Just to shoot that there. I think
well,
you
the
mean
one-sided. What's up?
I mean, I guess they can be. I guess the universal can be like one-sided-ish, but like it depends on how one-sided, I suppose. Like if they were like, so for example, liberalism's a universal, but I would say it's one-sided, but then it's going to be overcome. So do you think that these are necessarily like fictions that'll eventually be over?
Like their whole, right, can be one-sided, but what's in the whole has a truth to it that applies universally.
Right. So okay, but so I mean, like, yeah, I see what you're saying.
Like one of the propositions within the ideology as a whole has a truth to it, but in tandem with the other propositions makes it one-sided. Right.
Okay. Right. So here's my sort of position on just with what you've said then. I think that with you saying that gender is your desire to be a certain sex, I would disagree with that. And when you originally said this, I thought that you said that your gender was related to your desire to have sex. And that's where I would say it is. I think that I take gender to be kind of from a Freudian account these days. Lacanian, Freudian perspective. In which I say, like, really, when we're talking about somebody wanting to be a gender, like when we talk about a sex, we usually talk about the male and female characteristics, right? Like sexual characteristics, biological characteristics. When we talk about gender, we're talking about specific behaviors that are considered either depending upon your stance on what is normal or what should be normal, what should be the case, or what simply is most commonly the case. And I think that we should be, usually, when we're talking about norms, very much going for the ethical component. I don't think that's what happens these days, and we can talk about this and how masculinity has turned into a cesspool of its former self.
Sure.
But the sort of basis is kind of the same. It's a ideological structure built upon biological fact in which people engage in certain behaviors, often sort of preconceived, internalized from a hegemonic structure, which means like a group of individuals or some sort of like a sort of relationship to others in which an idea sort of creates the individual from the top down rather than the individuals creating the idea. I think that this is twofold. Obviously, I do think that the idea is restructured by the actions of the individual. Like institutions have this sort of back and forth between the ideology and the action, which obviously progresses as the engine of history, if we could call it that. But in the case of gender, just as we keep it as narrow as we can, it is an ideological structure built upon sex. Now, okay. I don't think that relates specifically to the desire to be a certain sex. Specifically because I think that when we say the desire to be a certain sex, we have to ask ourselves, why do they desire to be that sex in the first place? And specifically, and I think it's tied to it, don't get me wrong, I think that it's tied to the expression of sexual characteristics. For example, a man might want a wider jaw, or a man might want, to be muscly or something like that. Or he might want to be skinny, and he might want to be, depending upon the beauty standards of the time, which do change. He might want to occupy a certain sexual position, right? And it's the same for a woman. She might want to have long hair. She might want to have short hair. She might want to be thin. She might want to be, she might want a really big bum or something, like, you know what I mean? Like, she might want breast implants or something. I don't know. She might, like, whatever. Like, we kind of conform ourselves to these standards in which we want to occupy a certain sexual position. Now, that can't be explained simply through a relationship to being a sex, because you necessarily are that sex already. So if I was to be like, okay, I am a man and I'm a man, and so I want to be a man, that's not going to explain my gender. And then that's going to explain, or my desire to be my gender. That's going to explain my desire, that because I would have already fulfilled it. I'd be like, oh, I'm totally fine, blah, blah, blah. But these insecurities, I don't think are ever really overcome, because I think that what we mean by man and by woman are the universalities of man and woman. These are abstracts. Like perfections. Okay. And so often what we mean when we say, like, what is a man, we don't often mean like obviously some, like, I don't know, 5'1" morbidly obese, like, bloke is a man, but often that's not what we mean when we say what we want to be. And I think that this ties directly into the sexual position we occupy. When we see people who are trans, for example, and they're not okay with that position, that sexual position, like the way they're occupying, it's because they don't feel like they're being recognized and that they are desiring psychological recognition. And in this desire for psychological recognition, it will not be like they will not be satisfied with being some sort of like being seen as sexually male, but then let's say being like completely like discarded from that. I think that what they want to achieve is some sort of sexual position. And I think that's the same with everyone. Everyone wants to achieve their sexual position, which is why we've developed this ideological construct in the first place. I don't desire to be a sex. I desire to be the ideal sex. I desire to be the individual who is most sexually desirable, who is the ideal ego, right? This unity of a man, or this unity of a woman, which is this ideal. And you know, we'll make compromises. I think all of us can be like, okay, well, I'm not perfect, you know, but to only a certain degree. And at that point, we start falling into dysphoria. We hit a certain level, we start feeling, I am not good enough. This is unacceptable. I cannot live like this. And then, you know, this is why I think gender dysphoria is really not any different to things like body dysmorphia and dysphoria. So if it's a dysphoric attitude towards the sexual position you believe you occupy. Now, that doesn't mean you actually occupy that position, but you believe you occupy a sexual position based upon an ideological narrative from which you've sort of bought into, that you are either desirable or undesirable in relation to others. Or maybe you want to be more or less desirable, or maybe you want, or maybe you're just overly concerned with how people view you, you know, things like that. So that's sort of like the broad, I know I've went on for quite a while there, that's the broad overview of my position. It's very Freudian, Lacanian. The floor is yours.
Okay, so what I took from that is that when you say someone, when someone claims to be this gender, is that they're designed to occupy a sexual position, correct?
Sorry, say that again. The design to occupy a sexual position.
Desire to occupy a sexual position.
Oh, I had design. Sorry. The desire to occupy a sexual position. Yes.
So like, I guess, are there different ways to occupy this sexual position, and are there different sexual positions, and what are they? And I would say there are two.
Only two. Your girlfriend must be really sad. No, sorry, I had to.
I don't have one, so it's
no,
okay.
I know. Okay, no, I'm only joking. Yeah, sorry. There's only two. Okay, yeah, and you're gonna say that's sex, I'm assuming.
Yeah, we understand them to be male and female. So you desire to occupy this sexual position, but which one of those you desire is going to determine your gender. So if you desire to occupy the sexual position characterized as female, you're going to be a woman. And if you desire the male one, you're going to be a man.
Oh, you see, I disagree. See, I think that these sexual positions are numerous, but they're polar. So I think you're right in saying there's two in a dynamic. Right. So you can be one or the other. You know what I mean? Kind of, anyway. It doesn't have to be that way. You know, and I think that we often apply the law of the excluded middle to these things, where it's like you can either be a sub or a dom, right? And then in reality, the truth of reality is actually far more nuanced, but we apply these sort of distinct categories in order to explain certain characteristics of what are a power dynamic, where we say it's, you know, it's master, slave, sub, dom, that kind of thing. But I think that like when we really divorce sex to not, like, it's not male and female, because upon male and female we are placing these power dynamics. We say like what should be, or what is the sexual position of a man, and then what should be the sexual position of a woman. And so we often already identify with being a man or a woman, and then we are asking ourselves, now what should I be doing? It's like I already come from this like biological framework where I'm like, all right, I'm made of these component parts, and I have these sort of characteristics. Now what? And I think that's when we start getting into sort of gender identity and identity in general. Hey everyone, I hope you're enjoying the discussion so far. Just to let you know, I'm having a spring sale on my course, An Introduction to Western Philosophy, which has over 17.5 hours of highly detailed philosophy lectures. So if you're interested in that, I'll leave a link for that in the description below. Now back to the video.
I'm just trying to think where exactly you disagree here. So we agree that there are these at least two poles in these sexual positions.
But that not... Yeah, sorry.
So do you disagree that there are these like two poles at least? You're saying there's like an intermediate position you can occupy as a gender?
I'm not saying that I'm not saying... One second, actually, I'm going to turn you up. I've just realized there's... put you up like 5 dB. 1 second. Could you speak for us for a second?
Hello?
Yeah, that's perfect. Okay, so... I'm not saying that So I'm saying that there's poles we can occupy, but what I'm saying is that they do not map onto male and female.
Okay, so what do these two poles really map onto then? Someone's a man or they're a...
I would say the map onto the conception of the individual's beliefs on human socialization. So like an internalized social structure. So for example, if you're an infant looking at your parents and you desire your mother, this might sound very, very familiar. And you desire your mother because she's the object of your desire, in the sense that she's literally food. Or she is, psychological recognition incarnate. And it doesn't have to be your mother. It could also be father, blah, blah, blah. It's more of a, your primary caregiver, if you will. And, you're spending the most time with this person. You want their attention. You want what they want. You want them to want you. And then there's another person who comes in the picture and essentially disciplines you or castrates you. They basically, not literally, but, they tell you off. They say, no, like you can't have your mom's attention all the time, or no, you can't get your own way. And maybe your mom even does that to you, right? Then you feel this moment in which you realize that in order to continue to get what you want, you have to limit what you want. And then that causes a point of choice within the individual, which can lead them into a variety of different, well, specifically 3 structural approaches, as Lacan would put it, into how they approach intersubjective relationships. Now, this would be what's called like a sort of base signifier, right? Like the basis of signification, where the individual internalizes, or does not internalize, the moral signifier. And that moral signifier is what's often called the name of the father, right? You get this objectivity to yourself where you start questioning your behaviors from a position that is not your own inherently. That position of not being your own inherently, that is the structure, the internalized structure of subjectivity that you've been alluded to as a child. Now, from that position, you then build up other, additional signifier chains. You've probably seen the Lacanian diagram where it looks like a weird shape. These are chains of signification, and each chain is new information that you've built up based on this original sort of presupposition of how subjectivity works, right? And this obviously grows with language, right? It is a language in many ways. It's like, you look at forms of life and you internalize it, and then you build from that form of life based upon your desire, as in your desire for joy, and what it means to achieve joy based upon this form of internalized subjectivity. Now, some people think that they can only be happy when they breach other people's boundaries, when they don't have any boundaries, rather. So like they not even just breach people's boundaries. That's starting again at narcissism, but like when they just want and nobody tells them that they can't, and they've never really internalized this moral signifier properly. There's others who feel that they need to be restricted and controlled, because if they're restricted and controlled, they can enjoy life guilt-free, right? And there's others who are a combination of the two, and I think that's actually, in many ways, I think that maybe Lacan was wrong even in saying that there are 3 specific forms of significance. Maybe there's only one, and it's actually more of a spectrum rather than individual chains of signification. But the point is that there are people who, you know, want to be restricted and want to get their own way in often contradictory ways. And so when you look at like how they would then build a social dynamic from this in terms of like an ideology, I would say that when they're looking towards idealized sexual relationships, they look towards the internalizations of like concepts such as man and woman. It doesn't have to be that. There could have been, you know, like man and man, whatever. Like, you know, like the relationships with their father, the relationships with others in general, right? And they think, how do I occupy the position which will give me the recognition of what I desire to be within this signified chain? And that chain is an internalized construct within them. And that is the language which exists within the structure of the individual. That is like the sort of internalized self. And that's the big other. Now, that's what I would say we end up with this, you know, they internalize concepts from, you know, the schooling and society and magazines and media, and they internalize constructs from, you know, family life and so on. And in each of these scenarios, they're approaching these concepts from different positions. Now, some positions merge well with each other, and some positions clash harsh with each other. So, for example, I could not occupy the position of both being a man and a woman in a way which would alleviate anything within me. But there are people who could, you know, let's say dress as drag, and maybe they don't feel like women, maybe they're not occupying the same specific state. Maybe they're approaching it very differently, but they manage to put on a dress with where I would feel uncomfortable. They feel comfortable. Cool. I'm glad they're happy, you know, whatever. But that's because of the specific structure and the way where they're approaching concepts. It's the same thing with all sexual dynamics and all gender. The way that we're approaching these concepts in general is like when we say there's only two genders, well, yes, but how are we approaching those genders? Like, or like, how are we approaching the sexes? And then we have these gender dynamics. And it's this kind of intersectionality that I think, you know, I hate to agree with rad femmes, right? I really hate to agree with the
feminazis,
like, well, TERFs, right? Like, I really hate to agree with TERFs because I really do not like TERFs, and I do not agree with them in terms of the way that they treat trans people and they approach it.
Right.
But one genuine criticism I think they have is we often imply standards to, let's say, femininity or masculinity. And these standards throughout history, we've been very critical of, maybe too critical in some respects, to the point in which we've sort of, we're like, well, what is a man or a woman anymore? We'll hit this point of a sort of nothingness. Now, maybe that's their fault, right? Like in the first place, the rad fem's fault. And, well, maybe it's just, you know, maybe that's just the way things had to go because of this, the way we built it up in the first place, and it was going to fall apart. But the genuine issue is that the kind of reactive conservatism in trans philosophy sometimes, where we say, well, a woman wears pink, a woman wears dresses, a woman has long hair, a woman, you know, and looks a woman cleans the house. Maybe why not just why not just go all the like, oh, you be a woman, you've got to be a 50s housewife, and that's where I think that we end up seeing in trans philosophy. And so like these standards are not like objective, but rather sort of intersubjective, if you will.
Yeah, so my take on that is like when you get to these more artificial norms, like wearing pink, wearing a dress, etc. What I take these to be are culturally contingent, but there is a sort of rationale to it in terms of when we see someone prompting up these cultured norms, like wearing dresses, wearing pink. What I think is that when they utilize those, is that they're signaling to be treated as a female. They want to be recognized as a specific sex. And this is communicated through these cultural norms, like their dress wear. So like someone wearing a dress and wearing pink and wearing makeup, right? You will have a rational expectation that they want to be female. They want to be treated as a female. Do you agree with that?
Yeah. Yeah, I would, yeah.
Okay, yeah. So all I'm saying is that across all cultures, there is a male and female dichotomy, right? And how these are communicated through like clothing or culture can be contingent, but there is still a codification to communicate that anyways.
Yes, I would agree.
Right. Okay. So I'm struggling to see the disagreement here now.
So the disagreement would be as to whether this codification, like, so for example, I don't think that, I guess that I'll respond with a question. Why do they want to be a man or a woman?
Okay, so when you say why do they want to be a man or woman, I take man and woman to be a female or male.
Yeah, why? Yeah, and I get that's what you're doing, but you're saying that there are these sort of cultural codifications that are built upon them, and that they're trying to identify with these sort of codifications. They want to basically signal outwardly that they occupy this space. Why?
Right. Yeah. Well, I think they do want recognition, and they do want to express themselves, right? And the way you do this is through, your material arrangement. That's how you have to communicate it to others. You can't just, telepathize.
What is the self?
Like their subjectivity.
Okay, so that's subjectivity. And what's that?
I'd say probably like their freedom, their free will.
Okay, freedom, but like freedom in what sense? Like, what does it mean to be free? Like, because right now we're just going to all that like what does it mean? Like, what does it mean? Like, so if I say like freedom, and then you say like do you mean get what you want, or do you mean like to be the freedom to be uncaused? I'd say like self-determination. Self-determination. So what's self-determination?
Yeah. They have an end to which they want to actualize, right, through their own self-determination.
You could even say like self-actualization, couldn't you? Like you could say like, or authenticity. They wish to author themselves.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, like if something is determined, is it not actual, right?
So there's kind of two things involved then, isn't there? There's my desire to be an author amongst other co-authors. I'm not the only one writing the narrative. And there's there's also why why I want to author myself in this specific way. So there's two things I need to consider, isn't there? There is, why do I first, we'll first respond with the first one, which is I'm not the only author. So there is this codified structure, this culture that I exist in,
co-authorship,
in which I'm co-authoring with others. So it's kind of like imagine one of those games where you pass. It's like, I think it's like they do them in workplaces when they try to make you bond and shit, and they're like actually gonna crush your soul moments later. Like, yeah. When the sort of like, we're a team, and you do this thing where you write down, and they're like, you've got to like finish the story or something like that, right?
Right. Yeah. Okay.
And everyone writes a line. Now, like a lot of the time they do it as a joke so that nobody sees what each other's written and blah blah blah. Or they only see they only see the line before. Now I think that we're starting to get closer to reality when you only see so many of the lines that other people have written, right? And then that's where we start really hitting where culture is, because I only see parts of culture, subculture, sort of cultural dynamics that often don't permeate all the way through the entire universality, and I just sort of occupy a little bubble. Things have gotten wider, maybe, or maybe even shallower, depending upon how you want to look at it with the internet. But there's these bubbles, these sort of sets within the set, the greater set. And, you know, we can kind of build our words where it's like there's greater, more common chains of signification until the point in which you say, like, a language is like the entire, you know, structure where you can say everyone speaks English in this sort of sphere. And then in that sphere, they're speaking, you know, Mandarin, and in that sphere, you know, blah, 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 French or whatever.
Okay.
But, you know, everyone's sort of engaging with each other in these little bubbles. And, you know, I see these, especially when I'm younger, I see these smaller, like I see the people around me. I seek to either emulate or reject. So I seek to accept or reject these standards in order to, you know, accept myself, depending upon these sort of internalized positions that I've had as a child. Is it better for me to accept or reject? Is it better for me to do both? You know?
Right. So are you asking, like, is there a rationale to these standards, or are they like purely arbitrary?
Yes, but is it more the sense that these standards that we've put on male and female, they've come from subjects who are starting from their own subjectivity and trying to achieve something, rather than being a sort of now that's not to say that they don't exist in any meaningful way, because I think they do, but rather that the way they're structured is like a fiction. Now, would you agree with that? Even when we talk about male and female, like what is a man and is a woman, you might say it's male and female, but that doesn't, that like male and female is like you already are a male or a female, right? So that doesn't explain your desire to be one.
So when you say you are you saying like your body is, or like your
well, yes, unless you aren't your body, unless you think you're making a solid distinction between body and soul.
Right. Well, you can have a change. Well, can you have like a change to your body, but still possess, you know, because like your identity, would you say your identity remains over time despite your material always changing?
Yeah, I would 100% agree with you know, the continued, the ship is always the ship of Theseus. Yes. So, you know, as your material changes, you do maintain the same identity. But
right.
But it's
so what I'm saying.
Sorry.
Oh yeah. So when someone says when you say like someone already is a male, I think that they literally do not, like, what they think they are is what they think they ought to be. Is what I'm saying. Like what they are is in reference to their.
Oh, I'd actually agree with that. That's actually good. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah. So when they say so like the whole point of like of like a transition or something is that they literally are not themselves materially.
Yeah,
they have not materialized themselves proper.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. Like, but it's, you see, I guess this is the point where I would say that there's two things to be considered. There's one, I say two things a lot, don't I? There's one, there's the fact that they're not, that themselves is this sort of, and Lacan points this out to be the sort of, what is the real as the symptom, right? And by that means the structure in which like behind the structure of reality is essentially your desire, your love for the structure, right? Which is essentially like your desire. You are essentially desire incarnate, right? You're a drive. Mm-hmm. A lack. You're a lack. You're looking for completion. And no one is going to actualize themselves properly. But more than that, even our material analysis of the world is part of, and this is where we start going like metaphysically deeper, is actually part of a desire for self-actualization in the first place. So the reason that our society and societies in general have engaged in this kind of material analysis is to gain power over nature in order to attempt to actualize ourselves in a way which is more authentic. And so the reason that we've even made these limitations of man and woman or male and female in order to create this sort of biological sort of juxtaposition, which is true. I believe it's true in nature, don't get me wrong, is in the first place to essentially to be more authentic. The problem is that we often forget that we produced this structure and we think that this structure produced us. We look to it and we're like, I am a man, and so what do I want? Right? And this is the kind of thing that I'm pushing back against. I'm saying that we are producing, like, we are what determine how men act and what males act. It is through the observation of how men choose in their freedom to act, not in some sort of biological causal necessity. It's not that men should or ought to be a certain way based upon some sort of physicalism, some sort of physical parameter, but rather that we are choosing based upon our desires. So do you agree with that?
So we do choose upon our desires, but do you not think there's a rational way to, manifest your desire?
I think there is a rational way. I just don't think that we're perfectly rational. So I don't think there's a way in which we can perfectly actualize ourselves.
In terms of socialized norms, right? Like, is there a fittingness to saying that, men, women wear makeup or wear nails? Is that more fitting to what a female is and these male norms, these other manly norms, we say those are more fitting to what a male is. Like, there's a fittingness to them.
Well, this is the thing. Like, I think that we often end up breaking through language, so through these bubbles and through various language games which coexist in the same universality. And this is, the point in which if I say that this is a male and this is a female, and someone in even, let's say in England, right? If you look men and women dress differently, even in different, we'll have sort of shared norms, right, to some degree. But people in the north, for example, might never wear a coat, even when it's freezing, because to be a man is to be this hard bloke who risks hypothermia, or I don't know. And then in the south, it might be that it's okay for men to wear scarves, where it would not be okay to wear a scarf here, at least usually. Do you know what I mean? So
why do you think so?
Why do I think that? I think that often it's because that what we've associated with what it means to occupy the positions that sexually that we wish to we wish to achieve sexual recognition, or just recognition, which is essentially the basis of sexuality. And that in that we look towards the behaviors of others around us, and they behave in a certain way, and we can see them behaving in a certain way, which is logically predictable. It's sort of pattern orientated. And so based off their sort of pattern recognition system, I look to be the thing which they are looking for. And I wish them to be the thing that I am looking for. So I'm looking for something, and then they conform to that. And it's this sort of intermediation between parties.
Yeah, so then you would agree that there's a correct way to satisfy that, though, contingent upon what the society, but about how the society is structured.
Yeah, say there's a correct way to win a game of chess, for example.
You want to be recognized as a male, right? And all the males in the society wear a red shirt. If you're wearing a blue shirt, you'd be doing something wrong in terms of trying to actualize that recognition. Well,
wrong, quote unquote, is dependent upon the lived experiences of the individuals. So the whole point is why are you playing the game? So we could say the game is being played for the point in which we are trying to achieve this recognition. So we don't let the game rule us. We rule the game. What are the rules of the game is decided by those participants, which is why let's say I see a structure around me and I'm this structure is shit. I don't want this at all. I'm not gonna. Sorry.
I was saying meat eating is often associated as masculine, right?
Yeah, exactly. Right. I will risk being the soy boy. I don't want to be a soy boy in the sense that it comes with these social connotations. I don't want that. Nobody wants that. You know what about? Well, some people do, I guess. But I don't want that. I don't want to be seen as effeminate. I've never been an effeminate guy, and I don't want to be seen as an effeminate guy. And I used to be the guy that was I'm such a meat eater. I eat so much fucking meat. It's whatever. It's but at the same time, it doesn't justify murder. It doesn't justify killing others, and it's wrong. So I can either choose my desire for for recognition. Well, this is the thing. I actually think my desire for recognition was radically altered by internalizing veganism, because I think I realized that I would never be recognized because the ought within me the moral law within me would simply never actualize in this normativity. Like, I could perform, but then it's going to be inauthentic. Because then I'm going to have to reject my own rationality. I'm going to have to reject truth. And at what point, at that point, I might as well not be playing. And so there's a point where you just, fuck it, I'm not playing that game.
Yeah, okay, I see what you're saying. Trying to see where to go from here. Because I think I agree with a lot more than I would expect. But I guess, why do you think you have this desire to begin with, though?
Well, I think that what we are is essentially an animal. And I think that this is this sort of animality. And I think that McIntyre points towards this. And, when we look towards what is animality, I think that this animality is this, I don't think that it's described, I wouldn't look towards, let's say, the theory of evolution or let's say some sort of a Darwinian account or some sort of naturalistic, biological, mechanistic account of what it means to be an animal and blah, 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 blah. Not because I don't believe in biological mechanism or Darwinian evolution, because I do, but because I don't think that it adequately describes what it means to be an animal. It merely describes what animals are. And it doesn't tell you, like, for example, telling me that I have a receptor in my eye that responds to the frequencies of red light doesn't tell me the experience of red light. It doesn't give me the experience. And it's more about, and this is where I think Hegel was right in saying what an animal is and what separates an animal from a plant is the internalized unity within consciousness. I am conscious as a unified being. I expend outwards my desire. So this unity comes at a cost in many ways. And that cost is to believe that the external world, or like nature around me, is separate from me. So I am nature made into a being in order to see itself as something that's not itself, as something to procure and sustain a separate identity from itself. So I am a sustained contradiction. And I think that that's what it means to be an animal. I think it means to be a being who is the separation between subject and object. And I think that when we talk about expressing our subjectivity, we're talking about expressing this, sustaining our identity within a natural world. And that sustaining of that identity can be informed then from physical material sciences. And we start saying, like, okay, so what I want is food, water, sex. I want my identity to continue through time. I want my identity to not die right now, and so on. So I have this will to live, if you will. Yeah, so you're saying, like, to be an animal is to be a sustained contradiction, right? By maintaining a subject-object divide, mediating nature through like a will, you'd say? Yes, I think that sounds about right. Right. So, but would you say you want to be contradictory, or is there like an inner necessity to? Actually, I think that be united with nature as. Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Like, you got it right there. Like, there is the desire is actually not to be contradictory. The desire is to unite yourself with the object of your desire. Like, think about it like this. Like, when we desire outwards, we want something. As soon as we have that thing, we can't want it anymore. And so we're in this state of constant dissatisfaction. That's what it means to be an animal. Right, yeah. We want to transcend that. We want to become closer to God. And that's what separates humans and animals. And this is this is ethical flourishing. Now, that's not to say animals can't live more comfortable lives, and we don't owe them more comfortable lives, because we do. There is certainly a difference based on our own animality that we can see in terms of flourishing between not eating and eating, being beaten and not beaten, things like that. Right, just in terms of physical experience, but not in terms of spiritual development. Yeah, you'd say like the
the presence of like a negative phenomenological experience is itself the indicator that you're still in a contradiction.
Yes. And that's why objectification is wrong. And that's why giving into a standard of objectification which doesn't allow the individual to associate with that standard is ultimately wrong. And that's why I'm pro-trans in many ways. Like, where I'm like, yeah, okay. Like, well,
yeah, I agree to that. Like, a lot of the issues with trans I see is that when you separate the gender from the sex and like take this whole purely self-relating ID view, then I think you never actually address like the whole point of being in transition, right?
Oh, I completely agree. I will say that like the idea of self-identification is absolute nonsense. We cannot give into that because that is ludicrous. That's absurdity. To be entirely honest with you, that is mental illness. Like, as in that is a short road to losing your mind. If you say I am whatever I want to be, you are literally you are. That's the thing. It can't be what you want to be. That's the worst part. But you are literally the cogito, right? You are. I am. You are trying to assert that you are God. I am that I am, right? And it's like, unless you have a logical mediation in which you can actually be that thing, unless you can make the tautology true, you are forcing a tautology on the natural world, which means it's necessarily false. So it's like a circular position. It's not a tautology, it's a circular position.
It is circular, right? Like X is what X identifies as, and that is X.
Yeah,
etc., right?
Yeah, so X is X. That's all you've ever said. You've just went, I am X.
It doesn't tell you what X is or why X is even.
Yeah, you lose the foundations of semantics. And if you lose the foundations of semantics, then you won't be able to differentiate objects. And this is why I said in the xenogender debate, I think that this could lead to psychosis. Like, this is what happens with, like, and if you read Lacan, who, by the way, did his PhD, like, he was very much, when he was a consultant psychiatrist, focused on psychotics. He's very much more interested in psychotics than the other structures. He talked about this desire to, individual banishing the moral signifier. Now, the moral signifier, as we've talked about, is this sort of internalized disciplinary system. It's this internalized limitation to your will, where you're like, you can't, when I say you can't get what you want from your mother, I'm actually saying the world's not the way you want it to be. You're not how you want to be. It's not like this. You're going to have to change. And if you don't internalize that and you don't accept that, then you are a psychotically structured individual. And that's a problem, because when you come into contact with what is like the trigger for your psychosis, which is the moral signifier in reality, that limitation where you see that you cannot achieve yourself in reality, you come across this limitation, then you've been banishing. If you continue to banish it, if you're like, no, it's wrong, there are no limitations, it's wrong, it's a lie, and you keep moving away from it, then you distance yourself from reality, because you're simply putting your imagination onto reality more and more. You're rejecting the demarcation of language. Like, language is what really separates your imagined reality and the real in Lacan. It cuts through the subject to make this clear line where you're like, what I want to be the case, what actually is the case. And and if you don't accept that.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, the point of language is to cut off the purely sensuous relationship between the mother, right?
Yes, it's a limitation of jouissance, like sense, like that like enjoyment, where you have to go like, no, actually, you're gonna have to limit your enjoyment, for the sake of your enjoyment, no less. Now, right? Yes, the limitation is done for the sake of freedom. Yes, and this is what people do, and I think that this is entirely a symptom of Western capitalism. This is what happens when you adopt a Protestant egoistic ethic, which argues that freedom is getting what you want. you raise children on that ideology, and then you end up with transgenderism, and you end up with other. I think that the red pill movement's actually quite the same, because I think it's a reactive desire for the traditions. Like it's rather than going like, actually these traditions didn't work, which is how we got here in the first place. It's instead, we need to go back to these traditions, because they see this. Do you know at the start of the Necronomicon in H.P. Lovecraft, when he says, you know, if we saw, you know, if humanity saw like the universe as it is, or reality as it is, it would flee back to the warm comfort of logic. That's what we are doing. We are met with this existential crisis, and this is, I think this is like men in general, like not just men, but like people in general in our society. We are being met with this existential crisis where meaning is evaporating before our eyes, and we're like, fuck it, we're going back to the way my granda lived. I would rather just tell myself the lie.
Yeah, I don't think it's quite that bad right now, but yeah, I guess I want to know what is your view on like red pill and black pill shit? Like, do you not think that there is like a sense to it in terms of like, okay, look, you behave this way, you'll have a greater success in your dating life?
Oh yeah, like look, I think like if you're a red pill bloke, you're gonna do better than like probably like, you mean like, it depends when you mean red pill and black pill. Did you say there?
Yeah.
I mean, you're gonna do better with red pill than you are black pill, because in some respects, because although that's two sides of the same coin, I think that they lead into each other for one, very much, because I think that red pill is a hysteria and black pill is an obsessional neurosis, from what I can understand of it. And my psychoanalysis is okay, but not great. So I think that black pill is this, you know, I am not good. It's very super ego. It's like, I am not good enough. I'm shit. You know, there's no chance of success. Life is suffering, and I might as well just die. It's this sort of death drive within us. You know, like
yeah, that's excessive, right? But I'm taking like the very light claim that within like the initial, you know, 5 seconds of seeing someone, there are things that just immediately stand out that communicate something implicitly, right?
Well, I think yeah, sorry,
you know, someone is, yeah, like if you like, suppose, you know, I go and approach a woman, right, and I'm obese, right? Like, it's going to be a lot harder to get with a girl than if I'm a Giga Chad, right?
Yeah, usually, okay. I would probably say, yeah.
Yeah, so this...
Unless, like, our dad was really obese or something, you know.
Right, yeah, whenever people say usually, like, I think that we operate on, like, expectations, right? Like, I expect the world to be this way based upon how I usually interact with it, right? Like, it's, you know, it's completely logically possible that someone with, you know, like, no limbs, no face, whatever, gets a girlfriend, but that's not an
face. That's like, you've just described a D&D monster there, bless them. No limbs, no face, the float, they also invade your mind, you know, that kind of thing.
Exactly. Yeah, like, I shouldn't have that expectation that they can get with a girl. Like, that expectation that they could have a girl. I should not have that. Like, I should have these rational expectations.
Yeah, I'm not saying... Yeah, we agree that there is a codified structure, and that to entirely divorce yourself from that codified structure would be irrational. Like, you can't just... Right. This is the problem with Marxism. It wants to just re-establish a new structure, a new codified structure through a revolutionary attitude, rather than saying it has to change over time. I mean, does say Marxism? I mean Marxist-Leninism. Like, actually, Western Marxists usually don't have that attitude at all. They usually see it as something progressing slowly through society and institutions, and actually reject largely the revolutionary attitude of the past.
Marxists are these, dude.
What? Sorry.
Which Marxists are these? All like the really radical Marxists I see are like pretty.
Yeah, I don't mean online. I don't mean online. I mean academics. Okay. I mean people who actually think. I think like that. Wolf, like so you'll see, like, for example, like market socialists, for example, where they're like, okay, like how do we achieve a socialist outcome through the market? Like how do we make this a better society, like which is more socially orientated, through the what we have, through the institutions that are available. And even that's why Wolf is like, we've learned from the past, and even though he's too nice to China. And I think, but then you've got like Slavoj Žižek, where he's like sort of describing what's going on. And he says that the point that needs to change within us, the point that needs to change in society is within us, and that we need a revelation and not a revolution. Like, this is the point where, like, I think actually well thought out Marxists come to the point of, like, we cannot devote, like, this is why, like, Žižek says, I want to go through Marx back to Hegel. And that's what he's done. He's like, okay, we need to change. These are these material issues that genuinely exist in our society, but we cannot divorce ourselves away from the ideological structure entirely without completely destroying the revolution. And this is where you end up with people like the philosophy of Bourrier. I don't know if I'm saying his name right, where it's this point of, if, like, and I think this is what we're actually seeing in today, where Marxist-Leninists are popping up. The futility of revolution is so unbelievably pronounced. Like, it's happened. It cannot keep happening. The Marxist-Leninism's not going to work. And people keep.
Well, it's not logically impossible.
Yes, it is. But we'll get back to that at another debate. It's a terrible philosophy. It's actually really shit, and it's never going to work. But the reason, partly, that it's not going to work is that it's not really its own philosophy. It's a negative based upon, it's a bad faith philosophy. It's based on the negation of capitalism, which is why they're so obsessed with destroying capitalism. It's like, we must destroy Western capital. We must unmake this system, and it's just revolutionary. And that's why Lenin's is this perpetual revolution. It's why Trotsky's this perpetual revolution. And when you get to Stalin, it's just, all right, well, we're going to give up on the perpetual revolution and essentially just create a fascistic society, which again flees into tradition, and we're just going to essentially establish a negation of the West, but we're not going to continue the revolutionary attitude. So it was an admittance of failure, and it's essentially on its deathbed trying to say that it's not dying. So I think that the whole thing was an absolute joke, really, in the end. But it has taught us a valuable lesson about how we should approach revolution. And I think we could have learned this, and I think Hegel did learn this, from the French Revolution. Same thing happened. It devolves into a reign of terror. And this is what will happen if we would, like, with, like, not just with the self-identification, as you say. If everyone just agrees, like, I am what I am, well, I am what I want to be, right? Then you end in this situation where you go, okay, okay, well, I don't think you are, or what you are is in contradiction to what I want to be. So wait a minute, you can't be a man because I'm a man. And it's like, wait a minute, you can't be a woman because I'm a woman. And it just ends up in this whole, like...
the problem I see is, like, how do you recognize someone as a woman? That comes through your actions towards them, would you not say? Like, if everyone just accepts, like, self-ID view, like, okay, yeah, you're a woman, yeah, you're a woman. Like, what have you really concretely done to recognize them as such beyond just, like, saying you're a woman? You know what I
Exactly. There's not been any real recognition. So I completely agree with you in the sense that there are these standards.
Right. So, but then you would agree that then, like, there's a way in which we recognize someone as being manly or feminine contingent upon how we act towards them, right?
Yes.
Right, yeah. And I think that when it comes to, like, sexual attraction, this is where it plays into it, right? Because what the Red Pill is really trying to do is to show you how to recognize a woman as a woman sexually, and how to have a woman recognize you as a man sexually.
So you're saying it's kind of like an autistic training manual, like it's as if you've just not recognized the structures and codes around you already.
Yes. Yeah.
Maybe. I think that it appeals to autistics for that reason, maybe, because I think that some of would do, like, struggle with these things.
You wouldn't agree that, like, men are pretty autistic when it comes towards women.
No, I would say that autistics are autistics. I don't think that all men are autistic.
Well, I have you seen like statistics lately? Like, right, there's like an all-time high in like virginity and like sexless rates, right?
I think that's partly, but
that
actually, yeah, it is a problem. No, it's a huge problem. It's a huge problem.
Right. So there should be a way to address that.
Red Pill's not addressing it.
Without doing any, do you not think that like education, right, is a key to that?
Yeah, but this is the problem. What are we educating our kids to do? Right. The thing is with Red Pill is the acceptance of these standards and also the procurement of a standard which is one, it half exists. It's like women want X, and that's not necessarily entirely true with Red Pill. It's kind of like there's two things it does, which is it sort of creates this ideal standard for a man based off the sort of preconditions that exist within our ideological format. It sort of gives you a partial map of people's prior actions. And so you're like, okay, based off these prior actions, excuse me, some behaviors are typically more successful. And that's true, 100%. Like being more muscly, being taller, being, I don't know, fucking absolute giga chad where you're like 7'2", built like a truck. It's atypically going to work. But it's not the end of that story. Like, why is it working? And will it continue to work forever? No. This is and if the only way it will continue to work forever is if we, and this is where we move on to the next point, tell women what they want. And that's what men signal to women what women should want. And this is a total like, no one ever talks about this. Like, women tell me what I should like. I don't look towards women. I look towards women and I look towards my girlfriend and I look for the things that I want from her. I have a preconception, an idea, like the things that I'll react to that sort of inspire something within us. And these are the structures within, whatever. But then maybe she's done something with her hair, or maybe she's put makeup on and she's dressed in a certain way, or maybe she's wearing maybe she's wearing like the clothes I like her to wear. Maybe she's all cozy and it's it's attractive to us in this way. And so she creates this sort of signifier, which then I can then acknowledge. And so this is the point with the red pill, is that it's incredibly overt signification to women, just as much as it is to men, of this is what you should want. And this is going to cause more of an issue because it's that very standard that is causing black pill. It's that very standard that's causing, it's an unreachable beauty standard, an unreachable it's an unreachable satisfaction for women where they can have these chads, man, that don't exist.
But you agree that we should teach people what they should rationally want or not? Like a woman shouldn't want a guy who's fucking jobless and like is a misogynist, right? Like, we should teach this to women, right?
No, but I think that like would do. It's not like should. It's like, I mean, we should in the sense indicate what we want to be, and then that will essentially. But the problem is that we are teaching it in a way which is misogynistic, because what we're doing is essentially creating standards for ourselves, and then we are saying, and specifically, we are creating the dynamic, and we are being, in many ways, it's like a patriarchal structure, right? Where you go, this is the ideal relationship between men and women, and the people having the conversation are all men trying to get women. But we will say women fall in this position, men fall in this position. This is the ideal relationship. And then that creates the patriarchal structure. That patriarchal structure fucking sucks for men. It fucking sucks, right? And that is what's causing black pill. Because like as soon as because it's what you have is that hysteria of that's driving us towards this standard. I want to be the object of desire. Like me, love me, blah, blah, blah. This hysteria, this fucking desire me, right? And as we know from hysteria, it always bottoms out into obsessional neurosis. You end up collapsing. You end up like, oh, wait a minute. I am never going to be this ego ideal, right? And I am nothing now. I'm worthless. I'm pathetic. I'm weak. And then you've taught a lot of women, you've taught an entire generation of women to expect Disney princes and fucking Giga Chads. It's going to get I prefer the Disney princes, right? At least there's some sort of ethical component in there. There's something that like there's a sort of like a romanticism still present where there's the soul of the man. But like if you teach a woman to what you want is a 6'8" absolute monstrosity who could only reach it with surgery, drugs, and so on.
Do you think we actually are teaching women that you
yeah.
want a tall guy?
Yeah.
Like, okay, that's the part I don't really agree with. I think that when you say teaching, like, do you mean deliberately taught, or as something that?
I think it's twofold, right? Like, it's like giving your daughter everything she wants, right? That's how we're teaching them. We're teaching them through a behavioral affirmation, where it's like if they want, let's say, like I'm not saying women wouldn't want a masculine, like a more physically fit man, right? Mm-hmm. But in teaching women that not only like that, by putting images of, it's the same thing with men as well, right? It's vice versa, so I'm not saying it's one way or the other.
So, but do you think there's like a natural? You think we have like some natural desires though?
Like inherent?
Like, women naturally desire a healthy man, for example.
No, I think that these desires come from what we idealize, and this is where I said, like, that's why I said at the start, like, we are building chains of codification, even to the point in which when we talk about what is a man or woman, and then we engage in these sciences. And I'm not saying that they don't allow us to achieve our desires more accurately, but I wouldn't say that these desires are natural. They're still sublimated. It's like but like, you agree that we exist as animals though, and animals have these desires to fulfill an end in virtue of their animality, right? Yeah, so I don't see why you couldn't say this to humans too, that we have these natural desires that we want to accommodate and we want to express and maybe refine through these socialized norms. So like, when we say, you said you don't agree that like a woman wants a healthy guy, like she wants a guy that has like limbs and like I never said that I don't think that women want healthy guys. I think that women do want healthy guys. I just don't think that desire is innate. Like there's a difference between saying like, yes, I agree, and I think that women want muscular guys. I'm actually talking about that. I think the problem is that women's standards have went through the fucking roof, and if anything, men are deteriorating to lower and lower standards, and partly because we can't reach them. And I think there's the logical. I think there's a logical explanation for that, because historically, when women had to choose a partner, they were restricted. They were sort of like given a partner because they were restricted in their freedom, right? Like they had to have a guy who works, right? Who can sustain her. But now that because women have their own means of achieving wealth, now they can have higher standards, so to speak, of men. I don't even think it's that, because women don't want, like, even for the one, like, I don't even think that it's just that it's about like that just latching onto men because that's all they could do and that they needed to and blah blah blah. I think that women actually like, maybe I'm a hopeless romantic in this, I think that women actually liked men then. I think the problem is that women don't like men now.
I'm saying they don't like men, right? But I'm saying like they can like different guys though, right? And they can choose to settle at different levels.
See, this is the idea of like settle at different levels. I don't even think it's just that, right? Like maybe you're right in saying that like they've been given more material freedom. Yes, I would agree with that. Yeah,
of course.
It's not just that they have more material freedom. It's that they are also increasingly dissatisfied with the men that surround them.
So I think that's because men are degrading though. And this is because we're living in like this Coomer society, where people just like smoke weed, play video games, and
partly like. But I think that like, as Aristotle says, people turn to physical pleasure to kill pain, and I think that the reason that we are it's a vicious cycle in which men feeling inauthentic fall into this self-deprecation, these attitudes of self-deprecation and self-soothing, in order to cope with the fact that they feel unrecognized and uncared for, unliked, and this is I think that the problem is not at the point in which they are simply, like, don't get me wrong, it is part of the problem, like people are just being more hedonistic, and that's on the side of women as well, and that is driving this problem forward. Men are degrading, women are degrading, right? And that's what's driving this problem. Like, men are becoming essentially these like fucking self-soothing, half, like, I don't know, animalistic creatures, right?
Soy boy coomers. Yeah, say it. They're becoming soy boy coomers, dude.
And then you've got women who are, often doing the same behaviors, and at the same time as these. But the reason that we're doing this is because we are not limiting our desires. It's not that like, you could have as much material power as you want, but unless it's limited rationally, as we agreed before, it's meaningless. It's empty. You're never actually going to achieve anything. So the real issue, is that men, men want, for example, men and women are, for example, both watching porn, and porn is essentially creating fictitious sexual acts in which we internalize, which is, essentially in playing upon so many different parts of our psychology, right? Where you've got like this super fucking shredded bloke, and then you've got this fucking like surgically enhanced woman. Like
porn, but maybe there can be like virtuous porn. Like you can watch porn with your partner for like a good means, right? And porn that's ethically sourced.
Like, I'm not, but that's not what I'm even saying about it. Like, I'm not even going into the actual industry, which is horrific.
Right,
like,
I agree.
I'm just talking about the point of other idealization. Like, you can watch things with your partner, and I'm not saying that porn has to necessarily be unhealthy. And I'm actually a big proponent for the move from it being more creator orientated, like individuals, like and the movement away from corporations owning it. Like,
I think there's potential with like deep fakes and like hentai that would be more ethical.
Oh no, I think that's actually gonna fuck with, like, that's gonna mess with our fucking heads. Like, so like I wouldn't be surprised if people are only able to have sex when they superimpose each other's faces onto another person's body and have virtual sex with each other by the end that we're done with this. Because like what we have is we have Instagram, TikTok, and Snapchat applying, essentially reconstructing our facial structures to match some sort of already broken idea of what a man or a woman should look like. We'll have, essentially porn creating these unrealistic bodies, and like the same thing with movies and posters and shit like that, already creating these unrealistic bodies. The advent of better steroids and chemicals that you can essentially use to increase your physique. By the end of it, right, like, nah, man, there'll be like 5 guys having sex. We are essentially commodifying sex in the same ways that we've commodified material. And if we look at the way that's turned out, if we just look at the way that's turned out, there are like 3 people in the United States that own the same wealth as the bottom 50%. We will have like 3 guys with 50 million girlfriends. That is the only way this ends.
Okay, wait. Are you saying you just said there's gonna be like 3 guys with 50 million girlfriends?
Yeah, like it'll be like.
Okay, that's such a black pill take, though.
No, that's the problem. We are making
that is a black pill take.
We are making that a reality through Red Pill.
No, wait.
That's what's doing it. It's the hysteria. We aren't limiting ourselves. We aren't like women need to have more realistic expectations of men, and men of women.
What is this? You're saying that sex is being commodified, but that's only the case if it can be commodified to begin with.
Everything can be, any quality can be quantified. anything can be like I like that any quality in life can fall into a quantification in which I like. So if I was to say like which would you rather lose, right? Like your eyesight or your hearing? You're gonna go like, oh well, and you'll start making like.
When we say commodity, do you mean like actually being able to be sold on a market?
Well, sold on a market, as Marx has already showed, is a fetishistic attitude, which is a stand-in between the intersubjectivity of two people. That's all it is. And so what we do with money is essentially put a symbol on that fetishistic attitude. We go, bang, I want that fetish. I want to be the guy with the cars and the bitches and the smoking cigars as Andrew Tate and all that. And I'm actually a sex trafficker and all this shit.
Yeah, I really despise that.
Yeah, and I'm not saying you don't. Like, you seem like a good guy, but I'm saying that this is what I think our society does. And I think it's kind of telling in the sense that how many guys have you heard describe Andrew Tate as like hot or something? Like, I was watching a debate with Destiny and Aiden Ross or whatever, where he's like, Andrew Tate's fucking hot. And it's like, oh God. And that's because what it is really, and it's not because it's homosexuality. It's quite the opposite. It's not homosexuality. It's narcissism. It's grade A narcissism. He's hot because he's the ego ideal, and he's put him on a pedestal, and he's like, I want to be that. So he's actually attracted to himself, and this is this is what I think Red Pill's doing. I think it's creating ego ideals, and the only way that you're satisfied is when you feel like you put yourself in that position. You're the ideal ego. And then when you are the ideal ego, you feel like you're on top of the world. And when you don't feel like you're the ideal ego, you fall into the pit of black pill. Now, the higher the standard goes, and the more we compete like this, the worse it's going to get. The more market forces us into direct conflict with each other, the worse it's going to get. We need to be bros, man. Right? What happened to men helping their friends?
Hey, I agree we need to be bros. But here's the thing. Right? There is always sexual competition.
Yeah, there can be. But it's friendly.
Right.
It's
but then there's like a way to compete.
Now. Yeah.
Yeah. But then there's like a way to compete in that you can be taught, and you can be taught how to compete in it in a friendly manner, right? In a virtuous way. You can be a good sportsman about it.
But it's not just about being a good. I mean, yes, be a good sportsman, but in the way that we're like. Simply participating in the game, you should be able to like for example, the game should be done for, so like for example, if the game itself is, let's say it was like, let's take this to another kind of game. Let's say that the game was let's say UFC or something like that. And
I don't think it's terrible, but okay.
Sorry?
I don't think that'd be a fair comparison. But
no, but I'm just saying, like, let's say like we'll do modes of like physical competition where like you've got like forms of brutality which then go like more and more brutal and then less and less. We could say like there's a point in which it's like, all right, well, you're playing tag rugby, this isn't
like chess and like UFC, okay.
Yeah, and then and then you've got the this kind of brutal combat sport. There's a point in which we'll go, this game is not worth playing. Because the game is meant for the satisfaction of the players. And that's the point I'm making. Like, the Red Pill is propagating the game that is causing our dissatisfaction. It is the problem. It is the...
I'm saying the game is sex itself. The game is sex itself. Is finding a sexual partner itself. That is the game. And Red Pill is just trying to show you, okay, here's how you play in this initial stage, right?
You see, this is the thing. I think that is the basis of all games of this. For example, there's a book called it's called The Games That People Play. It's called Eric Bryan. I want to say.
I think I heard.
Yeah, it's a psychology book, and he outlines he goes into like the various games that people play. It's like a best-selling book, right? He goes into like the various psychological games that people often play with each other. Like for example, like a guy and a girl at a party, and a girl is essentially seeking enjoyment from a guy, but then rebuking him. In the sense that, and he gets enjoyment from being rebuked and often chases and things like that. And like this is how they kind of play the game. And this can then develop into higher levels of the game, in which the woman is taking satisfaction in the rebuke itself, rather than the guy at any point. So she might, whereas in the first point, she's actually enjoying the attention. In the second, she's actually just enjoying rejecting him. And in the third, you know, it might be like a false rape accusation or something like that. And often, and might even have sex with him, enjoy the sex, then accuse him of raping her as a means of taking enjoyment from the discard. Now that's like horribly narcissistic and obviously very rare, but it happens, right? Like that kind of thing happens. And he's just outlining how these things happen, right? And you know, there's other games in which men are the perpetrators and stuff, and you know, vice versa, right? And what he actually says is that they're taking different roles. One's taking the role of, let's say, like kick me, as he calls it, I think, which is like masochication, like being the masochist, and the other's taking the role of being a sadist. And that's what I'm saying. I'm saying that this game that we are currently playing, Redpill, is actually saying, look, here are the standards which got us into this problem. Right, and it's made them overt, and it's like we're going to embrace these standards to avoid the black pill, but it's actually producing the black pill.
Okay, so here's I think what we gotta go. Let's do this. What are these standards that you think Redpill is assuming, right, within this game? Because what I think they're addressing is they're saying, okay, look, this is what women want, right? Here's how you give it to them.
I don't think it is like that. I don't think it's... And one, like, even if it is what women want, like, first, I don't think it's exactly what women want. It's what we think women want, which is often untrue. Like, but we have to rely for example, Johnny Depp isn't a fucking giga-chad, right? But there are, like the man...
Johnny Depp is... What are we talking about?
No, like, Johnny Depp is a handsome guy, right? Don't get me wrong. He's got, like, a jaw that could fucking carve stone, right? But at the same time... He's not this fucking hype, like he's not like he's not like Jason Momoa or like, you know, like The Rock or something, or like, I don't know, like I'm trying to think of someone else that's like maybe like Chris Hemsworth, I think is actually like one of the most idealized men ever, right? He's like 6'4" or 5, is he? And he's like, he's Thor, he's fucking Thor, right? Like, right. And but Johnny Depp is like Edward Scissorhands, right? He's kind of like nervous and shy and sensitive, but like he's handsome and women fucking love him, right? In fact, I like my girlfriend, I know for a fact, is definitely more attracted to Johnny Depp and Edward Scissorhands than she is to me, and I'm much taller and more physically capable than Johnny Depp, right? Okay, but like that's just the way it is, right? Like, so the standard isn't necessarily true, where it's like women want these muscular, tall, like fucking.
No, that's not all they're saying. There's also like, you know, he's a celebrity, right? He has status.
I don't think it's just that he's a celebrity. How has he gained the status? It's because there's already been something that's like
by
clicked.
Acting.
No, not just by, well, yes, by acting. He's very capable of what he does, but he's performed and he's gained status because he's acted as Johnny Depp. He's Johnny Depp. That's what people like him, because of the way that he's acted, because of his personality, because of the way he's performed, because of his delivery and these things. There are numerous things about him. Like there are numerous particularities about Johnny Depp that people go, oh, you know what? Like actually, like have you ever seen the man talk in a crowd? Like there'll be people just sat, sort of like glazed over, looking at him, right? Because he's an incredibly good orator in terms of the fact that he's able to connect with people. He's not like articulate in a way that's like you know, really great, but his performance is visceral, right? And I think that's what's like done him service. Where if you look towards the Red Pill movement, it doesn't take into like, and even his femininity. Like, there's points in which he comes across where he's like a different kind of guy, and his differences make him stand out. And I think Red Pill's creating this, like, these ideals that are propagating not something that's entirely true. It's partially true. I do think that there are things in it that's partially true, but then but also like it sort of, what's the word, pigeonholes you into this sort of idealized ego set, and that's what's getting into this problem. We actually need to recognize the I can't ever say this word.
Plurality.
Thank you. Of what it means to be an ideal. Like, what's the ideal triangle? Is it an isosceles? Is it, you know, equilateral? Like, it's any of them. Yeah, it's any of them. It doesn't matter, because the universality of a triangle isn't defined by whether it's accidentally an isosceles or a equilateral.
But it cannot be ideal if it's not made of straight edges, no?
Yeah, there are certain logical, like logically affirmed points in which it has to meet to.
Right. So, with the black pill, what they say is that, okay, you have this isosceles triangle, and this fits for this group that's trying to fulfill this end. You have the scalene triangle. It fits with this group, and that's what they call niche, niche maxing. They have these maxing terms at the end, look maxing and shit like that.
Right.
Kind of funny.
Right. Okay. I mean, that's terrifying. But they're partially right. They're partially right. But I think that then this leads on to the second point of why, when you said they're trying to give women what they want. That's part of the problem, right? It comes to a point in which women don't want this is gonna sound it's not just women. I want to point this out. Okay, don't give people what they want always, because if you always give them what they want, then they won't want it. Right?
Okay, that is so red pill too, because they talk about these flirting strategies, right?
I'm not talking about a flirting strategy, man. I'm talking about...
You act like a tease. You're basically saying, don't give them exactly what they want. You got to tease them, right?
I'm not saying tease them. No, because that's then you're just giving this indication of what they want. I mean, reject what they want. As in, nah. I would rather be single than be that. That's what I'm saying. Okay. There comes to a point in which it's simply a position that's not worth occupying because you're a slave. It's like in Rousseau's what is it? Is it
I have no idea, man.
Is it I don't know if it's this. I don't think it's the social contract, or if it's I don't think it's a meal. Basically, it's a I'll have to double check. I'm forgetting me Rousseau really bad right now. Okay, basically there are Rousseau points out he's a sort of really in an ego relation, right? And one of the things that he's interested in is this, how we relate to each other. And he says that we start with this self-love. That's where we start, which I think he's correct on. And this inspired a lot of Hegel, this self-love. And then from this self-love, we have two branches that we end up going down. We have the love of the other, and then we have another branch which builds on that, which is the love of the self from the other. So you end up with this this sort of I wish to be the guy that she wants me to be, right? And this is where you get ego idealization from. And then he ends up arguing basically this causes all of the problems in society. This is destroying work. And what happens is that when you occupy, people think that when they occupy these positions, they're going to be happy. And he gives the example of a politician who wins the people's vote. He's incredibly successful. He's actually doing his job very well. And he ends up occupying a state in which he lives a miserable life, and he feels like he always has to perform to the desires of others. That's what I think red pill is doing to us. And then fuels the black pill, because we are idealizing, we are accepting these ideals as legitimate rather than rejecting them outright. Fuck that. Women have the much better attitude to this, where it's I'm not going to be this fucking stupidly stick thin model that's going to fucking kill me. That's a much more are there men out there who will be absolutely besotted with anorexic fucking people? Probably. They need fixed. The men need fixed. The women don't need to conform to that standard. It's the same thing with red pill and women. Even if women do love these fucking giga chads and they love these absolute idealized, even if you're niche down and have these fucking ideals all over the place. Nah, man. No. I'd rather the what we need, if anything, and maybe what we need, if anything, is a kind of class solidarity with men. Where we say, in the way that feminism did, you know what, actually, we don't agree with that standard. That's fucking bullshit.
So you just want us to not have sex. What are you saying?
I'm saying that, it comes to a point where we just start disciplining it, where we start pulling up society. I'm not saying that, don't have sex and don't conform to some standards, just conform to only the reasonable standards.
Yeah, I'm still that is what red pill is trying to do.
But red pill's not trying. I have seen too much red pill stuff.
Here's the thing. Okay, so we can agree that a woman will have an ideal to be with a Giga Chad. And what I mean by that is that if she could be with a Giga Chad over some normie, despite everything else being equal, it is rational to expect, right, that she'll choose the more handsome guy. But in actuality, they have these thresholds, right? And all red pill and black pill saying, okay, you just got to reach this threshold, right? For black pill and specifically, it's about looks. Just reach this looks threshold, right? And then woman will start considering you as a partner. You may not be the first choice, right? But you can.
Black pill is not that nice. Black pill ends up in a point in which it's like, even if women do consider you, they are going to leave you for someone better. And you lose the humanity of like, why are they even wanting, like, it boils us down to the physical, which it's just not. What they want from you is psychological recognition. They want your mind, man.
Yeah, but that is done physically. That there can be a physical way to do
it. There is a physical component, but what they want from you is they want your approval. People want your approval. They don't want
how do I approve? Yeah, like, how do you approve of a woman, for example, if not by showing, concrete actions towards that?
I'm not saying that don't. Like, I'm not saying don't work out, man. Like, I did lateral raises before, right?
Right.
Like I was like, I need to widen my shoulders, man, because I know my girlfriend will like that. Like, I'm not saying, like, but that's fine. That's cool. And do a little bit of, like, workout, shit like that. Like, that's cool. But when we're talking about these standards, they're going through the roof. And the standards are not only just in terms of, and it doesn't focus on the development of a mature personality. It doesn't focus upon, like, ethics. There's all of this is missing. It's instead this like reversion to the old.
I agree with that, but you cannot force, like, ethical improvement on women, right? You can't just force someone to say, okay, you need to consider this guy ethically. You need to improve yourself to the standard.
You can call society up, though. And women did that to men very, very much so, where, like, men's standards for women were getting too high and women were like, no, this is fucking wrong.
But there's a difference in the direction, because I think men desire sex more than women, and women are the gatekeepers of sex. They get to.
It's not about sex. Well, I mean, everything was it actually. We could always say, like, what is it? What's that whole Oscar Wilde quote? Everything's yeah, and that's what it is. The one recognition.
I think even sex is about sex, but
sex is about sex is because sex is about power, and power in a power relation, and where you want to occupy a sexual position. That's why it's about power. So, like, if I want you to want me, and you want me to want you. That's the kind of, like, that is the ideal in sex. And this is one of the things where it's like, this is why, like, I think men end up becoming these, like, kind of useless, flaccid, like, sexually inadequate individuals, because with porn and stuff, you end up, like, being incapable to take enjoyment from the actual act of sex itself. And so you end up being like, wait a minute, this isn't the thing that was getting me off. And it's the same with women. It's like, this isn't getting me off. And it's because our standards have been alienated from the other, because they exist in our minds. And I think, like, this is the one point in which I would agree with Jordan Peterson. You need to leave the girl in your head. You need to leave the man in your head, because they don't exist. And this is the same thing with like red pill and stuff. Like, there's no talk about the procurement of what are the correct standards. Like, I would have no problem with red pill. It was like, you know what, you do need to improve yourself, because one, you aren't, like, no self-respecting woman would get with someone who treats themselves like this. I have no problem with that.
Right.
That's fine. But then also say, look, women aren't just interested in your body, they're interested in your mind. They're interested, what we need to sort of engage with is also, what should women be attracted to? Maybe where are women being mistaken in what they're attracted to? Or women are attracted to dumb, like, jocks. Well, we need to change that standard. So we're going to essentially idealize in our own group, irrespective of women, what we wish to be the standard. And eventually women will conform. And women do the same thing to us. And that's the resistance. They have to resist. And if men and women don't resist each other, then we're going to fall into a point of abstraction, where one side becomes dominant and one side becomes submissive, and we'll just lose each other.
Okay, so you're saying that men do have to improve themselves, but not in some of the ways that Red Pill suggests. You're saying that they have to have more solidarity as like a class of man, and like subvert irrational standards imposed by women.
Yes, rather than accept them in terms of like a kind of red pill, which is like the red pill patriarchal structure which got us into this mess in the first place. So don't.
Okay, so
like yeah, if red pill was like this, then I wouldn't have a problem with it. But red pill's not like this. Red pill's like really overtly. It's not even traditional, because in the past we were more limited. It takes the standards from the past and imports them onto a present, which is far more, which removes restrictions.
Okay. Let me see where to go from here, because like I agree that, you know, ethics should come first, right? And that you agree there is a way to subvert standards or to keep standards that we should meet to. And do you think that women should get to choose their own standards of men, though? Or
Yes,
right,
but I mean only to some degree, right? Like that the men sort of indicate what are the sort of possible standards in the first place. Same with women, right? Like, and that's why when things go like too far, we'll call each other up. We'll go, wait a minute, that's bullshit. And I think women are right to do that to men, like in many ways, right? Like, don't get me wrong, like I love the exaggerate, like we'll all love like these days, like these exaggerated stuff. It's like I love seeing like superhero stuff where men are like shredded, and you know the women have like you know like giant titties and stuff, and it's like, oh, this is really fun. Like I enjoy it, and it's like a cool kind of fiction. But like when we start making live action movies and we start importing these standards out, like they're bad enough as comics. Like that's like teetering with the sort of idealized indications of the idealized structures that we've built, where we're like, ooh, what if we just did this? And they're like, ooh, that's cool.
Why do we have that ideal with, though? Like, why do you think like, you know, superheroes are all fucking ripped, and why does Giga Chad exist as a meme, for example?
Well, I think
if not that it speaks to like if not that like it calls upon something we recognize in the archetype of a perfect male, right? Of a perfect sexual specimen.
It's not, though. This is the thing. It's a one-sided conception of perfection, right? It's like, let's be honest, the perfect male, right? I'm a Catholic. The perfect male is Jesus Christ.
Okay, no,
right?
I disagree. I think when you say the perfect male, you're saying he's the perfect person, but not the perfect male.
But
right?
he's a man.
Well, I agree, but what makes him perfect has nothing to do with his like manliness or womanliness. He could have been a woman, and it would have been just as
he would be, because beauty is the most wise, not the most beautiful, Max. You know, like it's you know that's like a quote from at the start of Plato's Protagoras, and this is like when we talk about beauty in the first place, he's like, is he the archetypical specimen? No, because all you've done is exaggerate physical parameters to the point in which they are no longer desirable to be. I wouldn't want to be Giga Chad, because in being Giga Chad, I have imprisoned myself in this standard. That this is
how
because
I don't get that.
Because it's, as I said, with the guy that's been put on the pedestal with the you know, with being a politician and stuff, where people have expectations of him. Have you ever seen the movie Gattaca?
Gattaca.
Gattaca.
No.
Watch Gattaca, right?
Okay.
You'll love Gattaca. That's a really great sci-fi movie. Watch Gattaca, and then you'll understand what I'm getting at.
Okay, I'll try to watch Gattaca, but yeah, I just don't know why why would it be unreasonable to be Giga Chad? Like, you think Giga Chad in his essence is like contradictory, or is he like
Giga Chad as being the idol is the contradiction? He's not the idol. He's a false idol.
Okay, when you say he's an idol of what though? Of like masculinity?
Of the self, of the ego.
Okay, no, I don't think it's the idol of the entire ego. I think it's the idol of the
male ego.
The masculinity. Yeah, of the masculine.
Of the male ego.
Sure, of the male ego.
And so, like, he's a false idol.
Okay,
like, he's a meme. He's a meme. Like, I hope to God nobody actually takes him as like a point of worship. Like, but like, if you actually did say like, this is what I want to be, you are, one, going to end in misery because his body is literally physically unachievable. But two,
I disagree with that.
No, I mean, the guy's not real either, wasn't he? He was like an amalgamation of like various different guys that have been like made.
This woman created him.
Yeah.
Which is ironic because like she was created by a woman, dude. Like,
no, it's not ironic. That's it. Look, right, like there are loads of like. Look, I have poison ivy on my arm here. Right, I'm gonna see if I could show you. Wait a minute.
I'm not looking on camera right now.
Oh shit! Actually, I forgot your concept. Like, basically, poison ivy, right? Like, is like curvaceous and like, you know, she got the package, right? Like of what you'd expect to be like this ideal hourglass figure of women, and you know, yeah, and like, don't get me wrong. One, I think that's even more physical achievable than Giga Chad because, yeah, maybe Giga Chad's like, he's got muscles on his muscles, man. But like, you can work out, but like, nah, man, like, I don't think you're getting Giga Chad physique without steroids. Like, and two, even that, like, that's a comic book character. When you take it into something like, I don't want to actually be Batman or Superman or something, right? Like, it would be cool. Like, I like the idea. But like, in reality, it's not actually gonna happen. Like, Giga Chad is like this unachievable standard. He's a comic book character. He's like a fiction. It's like even taking people in live action comic book movies. You take an individual who's a real life man and you turn him into a fiction, and it changes him entirely. He's working at, like, they've got him pumping up his muscles and stuff before he goes on camera, you know, and like. He's living this incredibly like restricted lifestyle before he even gets there, and then the angles are shot perfectly to show like he's like rippling physique, you know what I mean? And then they have women like, you know, and like, so that women are like actually being seen to, like, if you look like in the scene, like the scene in Thor where it's like she's like he's topless. There's the scene in Captain America where she's like reaching out to want to touch him. And stuff like that, and so you have that at point where women are saying other women approve of the standard, and it's fucking with them, man. It is. We're fucking ourselves up.
So like look, let's just have like the next fucking Captain America, Thor be fat, like it's a woman.
We did have fat Thor.
Everyone disliked that though.
No, they didn't actually. I like. I mean, don't get me wrong. I didn't like Fat Thor because I think that the sad thing about Fat Thor was how he was kind of like a broken guy, and that they let Thor. But at the same time, I think it did add something to the plot. Like, it would have been like, you know, Thor's hit this like peak, and then he's sort of crumbled. But then they should have had like Thor building himself back up to like.
They could have do that, yeah.
You know, like, you know, that kind of thing.
He did that in the fourth movie, but that fourth movie was so shit. It was so bad I didn't even watch it, dude.
Oh, really? Okay. I didn't see that yet either. Is that Love and Thunder?
Yeah, just don't watch it, man.
I haven't seen it yet. Is it not worth watching?
It's not.
Oh,
it's like they do this thing where it's like you know Marvel like just like fills the whole thing up with jokes, and like they give no time for like any serious thought.
No, that's sad. It's sad. I mean, don't get me wrong. I like the kind of joke ones when they're good. Like, I think that like Iron Man had some good jokes in it, but then it had some serious, like, hard-hitting stuff about like American foreign politics. You know.
And Iron Man, yeah. Iron Man was good. I liked Iron Man.
Yeah, but yeah, like I guess this is the point of contention. And this is why I said I don't want to see these standards as natural, because they're not natural. They're being placed upon this point of naturality where it's like, it's an almost indisputable standard. no, it is a disputable, and we have to accept that it is a disputable standard. These standards do exist in some way, shape, and form, to some degree, right? Women do want these like shredded guys and stuff, like, and part and parcel because society's convinced them that this is like, women would never have known that they could have wanted that, like, before the advent of steroids. That's
why would society like,
or like diet and the way we do.
No, why would they choose these standards over other ones? You know, if we're saying that we're giving women the standard that they need a guy to be shredded, like, why would we give that if it's just easier to not be shredded, for example?
Because, you know, it's the same thing as why standards have become so high for women. It's because of what men and women want exclusively as consumers within a marketplace, which in a society which has taught them that freedom is getting is unrestricted desire. And so the like any desire that's unrestricted, it's grown and grown and grown and grown, and it's being passed down from generation to generation at the point in which we're essentially increasing our standards higher and higher to a point which is unrealistic.
You're giving me the answer in like the abstract. I want to know, like, why is Giga Chad in the particular way he is the standard?
Okay,
I mean, why does he have these muscles, and he has a sharp jawline? He has sick eyes, nice eyebrow, sick haircut. Like, why does he have those particular features that we made as the standard?
Okay, I mean, I guess it probably would be in. I mean, like, those particular features. I mean, I probably couldn't. I wouldn't say use the like those particular features are. That's it. But I would say that often they appeal to the sort of the things that women have wanted and that have been built on. So, like, I would say that women, for example, wanted a guy who's physically capable. An indication of physical capacity is being tall and muscular. Right?
I agree.
Yeah.
That's what Blackwell's saying, right?
Right. Yeah, but then they're saying that, like, this is something that can't be changed, and this is the standard from which we should adhere to. Which I'm saying that no, it's like, look, like, women, like, have you ever seen the original like Bronze Age bodybuilders?
Okay, no, but I'm saying this, like,
no. Before we look, have you seen the original Bronze Age bodybuilders? These guys were considered like muscly as fuck.
Yeah, I could kick their ass. I know that.
They're not they're not fucking Giga Chads.
But I'm saying, like, women can have this ideal, but not necessarily always strive towards it in practice, right? They can have thresholds where they say, this is where I'm going to settle with a guy. He makes me happy, right? At the end of their life, they'll look back and say, yeah, I've had a good life with him. Like, they can perfectly do that. They can still have this ideal, but not, you know, exclude any man who like falls beneath it.
But the higher you make the ideal, the more men are falling beneath it, and the less acceptable it is to get with a man who is of a normal. So, like, the normality of men is declining as well, which is a problem that we do need to address. Like, we're becoming physically less capable and stuff as well, and even mentally less capable.
Okay, but like part of that is because of, like, you know, just like as society advances, right, technologically, we don't have to, we don't have to die because we're too weak, right? Like really weak people can reproduce, you know, and then that's who we're going to see in society, right? Because we can uplift them.
It's not that. It's not just that. I mean, that has a part and parcel of it, but it's not about being too weak. As I said, like, look towards the blokes that were in history that, like, you know, if we go back like 100 years, like, a muscly bloke is not a muscly bloke now. And so we live in a society which has a higher standard for people who are physically weaker. Like, it's moving in opposing directions, and the reason it's moving in opposing directions is because not just because we can be weaker, but because what we want and the way we are getting satisfaction has been commodified to the point of mass consumerism, right? Like, we buy it in every way. We buy food that is, like, stupidly processed and made to be, like, more sugary, more salty, more fatty. We buy like online. Sometimes we don't even buy it. Like, we just consume online sex, which is more exaggerated, which is more, you know, sort of visceral and psychologically, like, and so men and women are both falling into these kind of consumeristic behaviors. But that is coming from our desire to be consumers. Why are we consumers? Because we think consumption is going to make us happy. We will never be free. This is just a symptom of capitalism, of like this sort of Western capitalistic structure where we are, from Protestant nominalism, we were told that the way to freedom was power, and that power is getting what you want, and that freedom is getting what you want. And that is crumbling away as we realize that what we are doing in this scenario is producing individuals which are physically less capable whilst also having higher standards for recognition. What we want is further away than ever.
So I don't see why this is unique to capitalism. But like I can perfectly imagine like a socialist or communist world where Giga Chad is still the standard, and like over time women are just selecting men who appeal more to their ideals.
No, I mean, like, this is the thing. Like, I think that in, like, don't get me wrong, I think a communist world, I think the ideal man wouldn't be necessarily, like, it depends, because I think it depends on the communism, right? Like, I think, like, in, like, the way that Marx talks about it as in the end of society of, like, individuals, I think it's very different. I think if we talk about the kind of reactionary sort of thing with Marxist-Leninism, I think it could be the same. But that would probably be because that it's just capitalism, but the negative. It's just the negative of capitalism. It's not its own universality. It's just the rejection of another universality. So it's purely destructive, which is why it reverted back to capitalism, because it never left. They never stopped being capitalists. They never actually left themselves. Anyway, but the point I was just going to make quickly is just to say, just ironic because I've never shut up this whole time. It is really to say that if you were to take a society which was, let's say, communitarian, like based on ethics, like purely like cares about ethics and cares about each other in mutual recognition, then we will see a society which is mediating this standard. If we took a society that was the other way, then we'll end up with something Victorian, right? Like we're prudish, maybe. Something which is very focused on this limitation aspect of the ego. And that was often done in the first place because it was a reactionary response to ego. Now we've got this unbridled ego, which is freedom is to get what it wants. How do we make sure we limit that ego so that we don't rip each other apart? And so it was this reactionary thing where we hide women, and you end up with things like Muslim societies where it's like we need to put women away, and we need to hide ourselves and shit.
Let me just offer like my solution. It's pretty simple. It's like, no, I think keep the standard, just help people reach it. You know what I mean? Like allow people to be Giga Chads.
I'm not saying to stop them physically. I'm not saying you're Giga Chad. Okay, well, to the wall.
No, but you're saying like, okay, let's just like lower the standard from Giga Chad. Let's just make it like some soy boy.
I never said that. I never said like some soy boy. I said that have reasonable standards.
I'm saying like here's the thing, like you can have extreme ideals and help people reach them, Like this is the approach I take to like to like trans people, like because when they say like, oh, you say trans a woman is an adult human female, trans women aren't that, like, no, this is where you're not radical enough. We should literally move to a society where people can literally become female fully. Like I literally do think we should have a society where people can reach the highest ideals possible.
No, you're looking to overcome the contradiction where you're like saying like no, this standard isn't unreachable. Why isn't it unreachable? Power. And that has been the Protestant attitude towards this problem this whole time, which has got us in this mess. It's not that my desires are unreasonable. It's that I lack the means to achieve them. How am I going to achieve them? Science. I am going to 10 out of 10 science. I'm going to max science to the point in which I can turn a man into a woman, and absolutely like actually to the point in which I am going to rewrite history. I am going to leave this dimension, enter another dimension, genetically alter you in the womb so that you were born a woman to create a pre-temporal paradox, to create a paradox just to satisfy your desire. That is the point in which we are going to reach with this.
No. Here's the thing. I think so. Like you can have like a mediation between the two, right? Or you can say that the means that you desire to achieve this end are unreasonable, but the end itself can be a reasonable desire, right? Like you can say like, oh, you want to make trans people like really female. It's like, okay, let's change the definition of female. It's like, okay, there you go. Like, no, that's a bad means. That's not a desirable means, right?
But like, it's not just about the means, it's the ends, right? It's like, what are we even desiring, man? Like, it's like, don't get me wrong. Like, I don't think that like there's anything wrong with having physical parameters for which you find attractive, right? Necessarily, that's fair enough. Whatever.
Right.
Like,
and I think men should be able to reach them, right? Like women.
Yeah. Men should be able to reach them without taking extreme means, so like steroids and stuff like that. So if so with the Giga Chad thing, like we could say that maybe that's a bit too high. Do you think?
Okay, so like here's the fundamental difference. Is Giga Chad in his essence unhealthy?
Yeah, probably.
I don't think so, because
his body fat percentage is like what? Like, let's have a look at Giga Chad. What's Giga Chad's like body fat percentage? Like,
okay, give me a second.
Like that guy's got a body fat percentage of like 3%, like maybe like 5% or something. Come on.
Okay, wait, PP. This is embarrassing, but my mommy's calling me. Just let me.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine. Looks like 7. Okay, you'd say 7. I would have guessed lower, but that's probably because I'm so overweight. He's got like veins everywhere. I was just saying, like, look, like someone in chat said he had about 7% body fat. I'm saying that's too low to be healthy, right? Like, like it shouldn't be lower than I think 10%, 10 or 11%. I think for like hormone production.
Sure. So but we can agree that there
put a bit of fat on him.
Some ideal to strive toward.
Yeah, like there's nothing wrong with a healthy ideal, a healthy physical ideal. I have no problem with that. I'm not saying remove beauty standards. I'm saying make them rational.
Yeah. I think what Giga Chad, what his intention is in trying to portray what that healthy ideal was, but what in particular we thought it was might have not been it.
So what you're saying is that Giga Chad isn't the real Giga Chad.
Yeah, but Giga Chad exists.
So he's a false idol.
Okay, you can say he's a false idol, but in the false idol, there was the intention of producing the real.
In idolization, there is the desire for truth.
Sure.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay. Yeah. So I think that is what Red Pill is aiming towards, seeking towards, intending towards.
Red Pills are Christian philosophers.
Yes.
I don't think so. I don't think they are. I think that being a philosopher, this is what it means to be a philosopher, to desire the beautiful in many ways. The form of the beautiful itself, which is for the Greeks the form of the good. Like, it is the good. And I think the problem is that then Red Pill is justifying a standard which has separated the good from the beautiful. In which case we say there is the beautiful, and then now we make the good conform to it. And I think that's you're saying. I think it's not that we are wrong in the standard of beauty. It's that we simply need to get as much power as possible. It's like, no, we need to think about, well, what does it mean to be a virtuous person? What is the virtuous way of producing standards? And these standards, and Red Pill doesn't do that. It puts beauty before the good.
But PP, you cannot be virtuous without having the power to exercise virtue. I
never said you could, but I said that we gain power for the sake of virtue. We don't gain. We don't. I agree with that, yeah. But that's. So what we do is we construct the virtuous standard, then seek the power to achieve it. And this is why the death of God, I think, in the Protestant sort of thing was such a tragedy, right? Because, like in Western society, because the thing is that when Francis Bacon and stuff, and the people that were like really big on this idea of gaining power, were looking at it and like engaging in science, it was because they thought they were doing it for an ethical purpose, and that ethical purpose was this kind of like God, and that he had like outlined. Okay, they were irrational with the standards. They were like, he's just told us what to do, and I think that obviously had to die away and fall away. But the sort of underlying desire to gain power for the good is a good one. There's nothing wrong with that. But the problem is that they also rejected Aristotelianism and became nominalists and self-obsessed egoists in terms of their ethical structure, which then made them forced into these like weird limitations where they become like incredibly prudish and like neurotic, and then you have this like sort of tension in my state between the super ego and the ego, which is like you have one side that's like, we need to let anyone be what they want to be, and we need to just limit what we do. I'm so sorry for being white, and and it's this sort of like I'm so sorry for all of the things that I've ever done or thought or what I am and who I was born, and I just wish I had never been born at all. And then you have the other side that I don't care about anyone. I don't give a fuck. I just want to get what I want. I want all bitches and cars and shit and like skyscrapers. And this is our society. We have a totally fucked up society, and it's really Protestantism. I'm joking. Like it's the fault of nominalism and egoism and the way that we've structured our ethics.
Right. Okay. No, that's fair enough. How long have we been going for?
Like 2 hours.
I know someone wanted to ask. Wanted me to bring this up. I don't know how comfortable you are discussing it.
Okay.
Furries. Are you for or against?
Against.
Okay. Why?
Because they literally embody themselves as fictional characters to then have sex with other fictional characters in order to gain satisfaction, which is the highest form of abstraction of what we've been talking about thus far. I also think that there is something maybe concerning with the use of animals in it, where it could lead to people being attracted to animals and bestiality. That would be a concern. So I think that, one, it's an unreachable standard which cannot be perpetuated by humans. And so they are only frustrating themselves and ultimately leading themselves to walk around in literal costumes. And the next step is that if they cannot find that satisfaction in the real world, that they might turn to the next closest thing, which would be the violation of another sentient being's body. So yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I was thinking like, can you be a vegan furry?
No. No, I don't think so. I think you can be, but like you're in a state of contradiction with yourself. Like it's like you're a vegan, you believe in animal ethics and so on like that. Well, then you need to change. You need to stop being a furry because this isn't ethical.
Okay, I see. Yeah. I was at I remember I volunteered at Pride once, and I saw like some furries, and I was thinking like, what the fuck does it have to do with Pride, really?
I agree. It's same thing with like I was at Pride. Like I worked at Pride, and and there's just some like the fetishism stuff, and some pretty extreme stuff like gimp, like a guy like walking around in like a full-on gimp suit, like on all fours, being like with like a leash on him and stuff, and it's like, whoa, man, that's not cool.
Yeah, what's that have to do with like, like fighting for your rights or like?
I understand. I think the point was originally the same as the punk movement in many ways, where it's like the more you tell me to restrict, the more I'm going to irritate your desire to make me restrict. And I think that's based. That's like the more you say I can't do it, the more I'm going to do it overtly. So you can make the decision as to whether you're okay with me doing it in private or I'm going to make this public. That is based as fuck.
But was anyone really like saying you can't wear gimp suits in private though?
No, well, I mean, like that's the thing with I think the fetishism was to just make it like we're going, like you didn't want homosexual contact of people holding hands and stuff like that.
Well, the
more you say that I can't have sexual contact in a reasonable way, the more unreasonable I'll become. And that's
so dumb.
I don't think it is. I think that makes sense. I think
because there's no logical connection between like homosexuality and like gimp suits, right?
No, okay, yeah, I'm not saying gimp suits like specifically. I think it's just a point of sexual expression, which is more like overt. It's like it's like, whoa, that is sex. Like, and I think that's like that's the and not everyone's walking around in gimp suits that like wearing like leather bondage gear or something like that, where it's like like a harness or something like that.
No, I saw some guy with like a cock ring at Pride, like fully naked.
I mean that's a crime, right? I think that's just a crime. But like I think the point is that like the point should be, at least I think it originally was, to be an act of rebellion. And I think that was exactly what they needed to do. They needed to rebel because they were being oppressed. You know, oppressed people they did it in a non-violent way. Great. Like, I'm glad they weren't blowing people up or something. They're just like fucking donning a leather outfit in public in hot pants. Like, cool. Like, glad they got their rights, man. But then you put the hot pants and the leather stuff away, that when you got your rights, right? Like, you know.
Right,
like,
yeah. Yeah, right, yeah. Yeah, I see that. Here we go, yeah. Oh, yeah. Orge wanted me to ask that, but...
Did he? Terrible. Orge. Okay. Right.
Yeah, I know.
Right, well, would you like to say anything before we end?
Thanks for the conversation. It was a fun one. If you want to talk about God in the next one, I'm totally down.
Yeah, 100%.
Okay,
well, I've really enjoyed it as well, man, and I hope you stop being red pill.
Okay, dude. I hope you swallow both of them, man. You gotta swallow both.
These purple pills.
Yes,
right,
dude.
okay. Right, well, thanks for the conversation. Take it easy.
Later.
If you've enjoyed this conversation and you'd like to learn more about philosophy, please check out my course in the description below. Subscribe, like, and as always, try to gain some perspective.